Hello and welcome back to Card Kingdom's Rags and the Riches 3 Pauper tournament called The Last Crusade. I'm your host, Josh Monks, joined in the booth by Sean Yu. Sean, how you doing today? This is our first time casting today.
So. Yeah.
We got a round coming up at you live. We're going to head down to the match now. So we have Mono Black Control versus Elves.
Yep.
And this matchup's actually pretty interesting. Mono Black Control has a lot of good targeted removal and a lot of good make you sacrifice removal, while Elves has a lot of wide minions and then cards like Wirewood, what's that guy's called? I always forget the name of that guy. Wirewood Herald?
Yeah.
Him, the one that pumps all, Timberwatch Elf. The one that pumps target elf for each elf you control.
Okay.
It's able to kind of explode out of nowhere with that, and there's a lot of interactions like with Quirion Ranger that I'm sure you're experienced with in Legacy.
Yeah, it's Quirion Ranger has been a staple of every single elf deck in every format that it's been legal.
Mm-hmm. It's very powerful. Like, lets you get these kind of redundant effects multiple times per turn that you normally only get once.
Yeah. What I think would be really important, just based on how these types of strategies play out in other format, is whether the Mono Black Control can keep up tempo-wise in terms of removal with elves. Because the sacrifice effects get a lot worse if the elves deck is able to put out more creatures.
Multiple creatures, absolutely.
That are too fast, so I'll always be able to sacrifice the weakest one.
Absolutely. One of the things that might happen, though, is if Cody gets an early Kumbaj Witches down, that'll be a very big deal, as that's able to kill literally every single card on this list except for the Nettle Sentinel and the Lissalana Headmaster.
Yeah, that seems like an absolute beating for the Elves deck. It's Fire Slinger on the stick, basically.
Pretty much. Ping your guy for one, ping me for one, and the life total of the Mono Black Control deck is not super relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So. Looks like we have a little bit of a sleeves issue. I'm not really sure what's going on downstream. Hopefully our spotter will swing by and tell us.
Yeah.
Looks like maybe some resleeving going on, a couple broken sleeves, or maybe he's just resleeving his entire deck. I'm not sure.
Certainly a possibility.
Yeah, it looks like he's resleeving. Yeah. So this might take a little while. I felt bad because I was a little bit late after the round started to get back into the booth, but looks like I wasn't the one slowing us down. So.
That's my MO, actually.
Yeah. Usually it's you showing up at 6:40 for our 6:30 events, yeah.
Yeah.
We wait for you,
though. Here we're all ready to go. Pauper is really exciting. You don't get to see a lot of Pauper action in paper, especially not on camera. So we're really excited to bring you from Card Kingdom what everyone wants to see. And there's certainly a strong Pauper community. So
absolutely. This is our third event, third time we've sold out. That's 3 for 3 on 72 people showing up, and that includes some people getting kicked out at the door because of the fact we hit max capacity. But yeah, there's clearly people that want to play this format. There's clearly people that want to watch this format, and we here at Card Kingdom, we really like creating content about formats, and this broadcast is certainly one of the first steps into that.
Yeah, what other formats do we have that are a little off the wall?
So we've been doing Modern No Ban List, actually, and I think that's mainly just going to be taken over by the Mox Boarding House side, and then Pauper is going to stay over here at Card Kingdom. Mox Boarding House is the sister store of Card Kingdom over in East, well, I was going to say East Seattle, but it's right outside of Seattle in the Bellevue-Redmond area. Mm-hmm. Microsoft mothership, if you will.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Mox Boarding House, certainly check it out if you've checked out Card Kingdom but haven't had a chance to go across the water. It's a really sweet store, even bigger than Card Kingdom.
Yeah, it's a whole lot bigger.
Unfortunately, if you want to catch some of this exciting Modern No Ban List live, Mox Boarding House doesn't quite have the video recording capabilities yet. So
it's in the works. It's in the works.
That's what I'm told. Hopefully it'll be ready by then. No guarantees. So if you want to check it out, just make your way down there and see some of the most busted cards printed in the last 15 years getting thrown at each other.
It's a pretty fun format overall. Looks like these guys are rolling some non-regulation die. We'll have to remind them. Hey, Casey, can you remind them to use the big dice? Just making sure that us here at home can see, as people like having their own dice, and it makes sense. It's important to bring those when you need them, but it's also important that the viewers at home can see. So.
Now this is actually our table number 3, so our 5th and 6th ranked players. The top 2 tables consist of 4-0 players. They're guys we've seen on camera before, so I'm sure we'll see more of them later.
Absolutely.
But right now I want to bring you some Elves versus Mono Black Control. We've seen both these decks on camera, but not quite this matchup yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen this matchup or these players. We did see Cody at the last Pauper event. He was also playing the same Mono Black Control deck. Yeah, I don't know if the list is the same.
He's been convincing me to try Pauper. He thinks it's an absolute blast, and you know what? I don't disagree, but given that we've been selling out every time, I want to give other players that really enjoy the format an opportunity to play, because I think it would be selfish kind of to like hog up the spot. Absolutely. When I'm not as knowledgeable about as these players at the top tables are.
Yeah, so Frank started out there with an Elvish Mystic. Cody was able to answer back with this figure, so he's not going to be behind on tempo quite yet.
Yeah.
And Frank, I don't think he's got a second land.
He doesn't have a second land, so he's actually got a tempo, pretty far back on tempo.
Absolutely.
He actually has a Quirion Ranger that could actually bounce the forest and allow another 1-drop. We decline. Oh, Cody misses the land drop too, and I think the mono black deck really wants to be able to make use of that. So he plays another Quirion Ranger.
Got another
passes
Quirion
turn.
Ranger. Swing for 1.
Yeah. Do you think there was any merit to maybe playing that second Quirion Ranger last turn? By
I
using...
certainly would have played it last turn. You could have played that last turn, and then this turn you could have played that Elvish Visionary in hand.
Yeah.
That seems like a very reasonable line. I
you
really
think-
want to see what Cody's hand is, but the way he's holding it just makes it very tough
Yeah.
to tell a single card.
I wonder if each of these players know what each other were on before they decided what to keep.
Oh, yeah. So it looks like Cody's just going to
clean
move to discard. Go ahead and discard that Gurmag Angler.
Yep. He's going to feed another Gearmag Angler if he's able to get that eventually. And looks like Frank picked up a copy of, is that the...
That is a Timberwatch Elf, yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe that searches your library for an elf and puts it into your hand, is that right? Or is it, yeah, that's what it is, I'm pretty sure. I was thinking it was Sylvan Ranger, but that card is the Goblin,
Sylvan Messenger is the Goblin Ringleader.
yeah, Goblin Ringleader, that's the card I was thinking of. So many Goblin cards. So it looks like Frank is going to go ahead and get his Elvish Visionary down this turn. He's able to tap a land for mana, bounce it back to his hand with the Quirion Ranger, play his land for the turn, and then use the second mana to cast it. Cody's going to finally hit a second land drop, fire off Sign in Blood, targeting himself, going down to 15, drawn 2 cards, hits a third land. That's a pretty big deal for him. I'm pretty sure he's going to have to move to discard here, though.
Yeah.
Let's see what he elects to pitch.
Well, I certainly imagine he's going to hold on to any lands that he's found.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like he's going to get rid of a Victim of Night. Pretty premier removal spell, especially in this matchup, but it is 2 mana kill something.
No vampires, no werewolves, no
Spirits.
spirits, zombies. Can't remember, but
I think it's
certainly
zombies
these
also.
elves are going to be hit by victims of knights.
Yes. Yes. So 3 damage getting in off the crack. And then Frank is going to play, it looks like a third Quirion Ranger. Oh, no, it looks like he's going to play a Well-Wisher. Oh, maybe not.
Did he target
There he is.
anything? He has to target something.
Yeah, he does have to target. I don't think it's a huge deal, but yes, he does have to untap a creature.
Let's go ahead and.
I don't think it's too relevant.
Okay.
At worst, Cody looks like he might just be calling a judge to see what happens. Oh, thank you. So yeah, it looks like Cody is saying, hey, you have to target something. I mean, this is a very easy fix. You just untap one of the creatures.
Rotate it 90 degrees to the left.
Yeah. It's something that, you know, if it happened to my opponent, I'd be like, not a huge deal, but let's make sure we fix this in the future.
Yep.
But when you're out in the booth, it can be just like a big hassle to try and run over there and stop them and come back and get all that going on, especially on something that is, one of these creatures being untapped is not going to have an impact on the match.
No. Well-Wisher, is that one of the best common creatures in Pauper?
I would say so. It's an incredibly powerful effect. It really depends, because in a lot of matchups it's pretty irrelevant. I would say in this matchup, pretty irrelevant. I feel like Mono Black Control is going to be able to handle it quite easily. Regardless of what the life total is Frank's able to get to, Cody's going to be able to close out the game should he lock down board control.
What was the red goblin version from that cycle? I remember that was an absolute house in limited.
Sparksmith. So
Sparksmith, yes.
it pings a creature for 1, and then you for each goblin you control. Or is it target creature and you for each
I
goblin
think
you
it's
control?
X to each,
Okay.
both the creature and yourself, but it can take out absolutely huge creatures with its tap ability.
Absolutely.
You know
Cannot
what it
untap
combos
with
with?
Quirion Ranger, though.
It
What is it?
combos well with Well-Wisher if you manage to get elf goblins into play.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole
get
lot of
those
elf goblins.
Is that a
So
Kumbaj?
I don't think so. It costs 3 mana. I'm not really sure what that card is. I think it's a Crypt Rats. I think it's a Crypt Rats. Yeah, it is a Crypt Rat. So it's 3 mana for a 1/1, and it's X. Deal X damage to each creature and each player. Only black mana can be spent on it.
Pestilence on a stick.
Pestilence on a stick. That is exactly what it is.
And Frank is not going to want to let Cody untap with that. That is a very scary threat against his board of 1/1s.
Frank certainly wants to stop it from untapping. However, he's playing mono green. There's not a whole lot of removal spells in mono green.
You got to get that Timberwatch elf active, but it's not going to be there in time.
Yeah, that's very true. And Frank's still on 1 land here. That's a little awkward for him, especially when he's got cards like Distant Melody in his hands. Looks like Frank is going to attack for 3 here. I would probably just attack with the Well-Wisher. I don't think
Yeah,
that
that's 4
Frank's
life.
life total is too relevant here. It looks like he's just going to go ahead and gain 4.
And this Elves deck only plays 9 forests. So got 4 land grants. That's interesting. Why would this deck want to run some land grants?
So land grants let you kind of cheat a little bit in terms of the land count because you can kind of count them as lands.
Yeah.
However, it only works if you're playing only one land type,
Yep.
and it only works if you're really not going to have issues with mana fixing. You just need the quantity.
Yep.
However, he is playing 4 Distant Melody in his deck, and he's got no islands. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the only way he can cast that is off of a Birchlow Rangers. He's got 4 Birchlow Rangers. Oh, and he's got 4 Springleaf Drum as well.
Okay.
So that also helps as well. That also gives him a little bit of
Well,
mana, but
looks
even still, he's very
Frank,
low in mana.
after getting his board swept by that Crypt Rats, managed to pick up a second copy of his second forest, along with Birchlow Rangers, allows him to actually rebuild pretty nicely.
Yeah. Birchlow Rangers and Quirion Rangers. It looks like Birchlow Rangers resolves, and now Frank's going to drop Quirion Rangers.
And Cody actually said, hold up, I might have a response to that before the Queen Ranger comes into play.
It looks
Okay,
like he's going to let that happen. Frank is going to pass the turn, and so Cody will kill the Quirion Ranger on instep rather than taking out the Birchlow Rangers. I could see the case for killing the Birchlow Rangers in response to the Quirion Ranger, because then Frank wouldn't be able to tap them for mana.
Yeah, but looks like he didn't have any 1 mana play, so it worked out well for Cody. Got a Phyrexian Ranger?
Chittering Rats.
Chittering Rats.
So
Okay.
it's a 2/2. When it comes into play, your opponent stunted growth for 1. They put 1 card from their hand on top of their library. Basically, it just skips a draw step, but it can be incredibly detrimental
The
sometimes.
stunted growth mechanic is one that Wizards has not really wanted to print in recent sets. I think it
Absolutely.
is a source of considerable frustration to
Super life tilt.
many players.
That's for
it's
sure.
It's worse than discard when you have a terrible card that just goes back on your draw step and clogs you up from another redraw.
It feels like a discard and a misdraw step. Even though it's only affecting you for 1 card, it still feels a lot more painful. I guess it's because it's 1 card in the future. So we're going to see a Disfigure here take out the Birchlow Rangers.
Yeah, that a Wirewood Herald right next to it,
Yes, it is.
and he's not going to want to disfigure that Wirewood Herald.
Yeah, because when
that
it
has no
dies, it
trigger.
searches, right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's right. Is it a 2/2 or a 1/1?
It's a 1/1.
Okay.
There's another Onslaught Elves. The Onslaught block was extremely kind to the tribal synergies we have. The Elves, Goblins, Merfolk. Actually, no, Illusions, I think, were the blue ones.
Yeah, illusions were
Zombies,
blue, zombies were black, and
soldiers, I believe?
soldiers were white, yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't just that. Around the time of
Oh,
Onslaught,
there's also
they had
clerics, right? Or was that Odyssey?
I don't actually remember.
I think that was Odyssey.
But around that time, they went ahead, Wizards went ahead and retroactively errated a lot of creatures, and this gave them some consistent creature types. So a lot of, for example, Ball Lightning was summon Ball Lightning back in the day.
Yeah.
That changed to an Elemental. They just tidy things up a lot.
Yeah, one of the big things that happened then was they tried to add the race class system,
Yeah.
which is basically setting every creature should have 2 creature types, one that's their race and one that's their class. It doesn't work for all of them, obviously. Ball
Yeah.
Lightning is a good example. Doesn't really do a thing. It doesn't have a profession besides 6ing the opponent, and it turns out summon or a creature type elemental 6 damage your opponent's face is not really one of the race class selections.
Yeah. I think there was one creature that never got a new type, nameless one or nameless race.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was originally summoned Nameless Race, I think, and Nameless One, and it just had ability in the text box saying it had no creature type, but now it just has no creature type.
Oh,
I think
interesting.
it's one of the unique effects.
That is a unique effect. It doesn't happen often.
Nameless Race has no creature type.
Interesting.
As originally printed in the dark, it was a summon Nameless Race card, and actually it had nothing on its ability text describing its creature type, but creature types weren't as relevant back.
Absolutely. There wasn't a lot of tribal matters. So it looks like Cody is going to fire off a Chainer's Edict as a 1-for-1, and that's going to let him use his remaining mana to drop a Gurmag Angler, the 5/5 Fisherman,
Yep.
straight into play.
That Gurmag Angler just really put the board, tilted the board very strongly in favor of Cody. He's down 13 points right now, but I think he's very far ahead in
Absolutely.
this game state.
I feel like Cody has been a little bit ahead for a little while as Frank hasn't been able to cast the lands.
Yeah.
And now he's finally actually putting the winches into the coffin. He's finally drilling those bits in, locking it down. You get a Wirewood Herald. Again, I imagine that's going to be on chump block duty. It usually is. Swamps the draw for Cody. That's land number 4 for him compared to land number 2 for Frank.
Now here's likely a fog unless Cody decides to point a removal spell towards that elf.
I don't think it's worth it to remove. I think you just attack and then you play a Chittering Rats.
What do you think Frank's going to want to search up this time?
I'd probably just be fetching up Elder's Visionaries. I think you need to hit land drops.
Is that another Crypt Rats?
It's another Crypt Rats. I don't know. I would have just played Chittering Rats, though. He's not attacking with the Chittering Rats either? Interesting.
I think I would like to save the Crypt Rats for after combat.
Absolutely.
So give your opponent a little bit less information to work with when making combat decisions, and also with that tutoring decision.
Yeah, with a tutoring decision, absolutely. It's better to hide information. I also feel like Crypt Rats doesn't do a lot on this board. When you're up on board control, wrath effects aren't really at a premium. And I feel like when you're up on board, tempo plays are huge, and so playing Chittering Rats here would have been insane. I'm pretty sure Cody has them in hand. Looks like we're going to see this tutor happen. Does it have to get an elf, or is it a green creature?
I think it's an elf.
Okay, I believe it's an elf, but I'm not 100% sure. Wirewood Herald.
Yeah, let me look at that up real quick.
Looks like Frank is going to find Elvish Visionary. That's certainly the card that I would go here for. I'd go
It's
for
an
here.
elf.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Elvish Visionary is really important because it helps chump while it also gets you into your deck, which is a really big deal right now.
Actually, I think you mentioned a very good point about playing the Chittering Rats to set back the tempo. Although you would probably want to save that for post-combat. Just to
Absolutely.
make sure the shuffle trigger doesn't
Yeah, exactly.
end up costing you with... Because you want him to redraw a bad card because he hasn't had anything to work with yet.
You usually don't want to play your creatures before combat unless there's a specific impact that creature will have on the combat step.
Sweet. Do you see what Frank just picked up right
Looks
there?
like a land grant.
A land
so
grant.
In this
That's
situation,
interesting.
it could just be a forest.
It's a free spell to cast. I'm not sure what the advantages of running land grant over forest are in this deck, other than thinning your library, which is a very minimal effect.
It feels like thinning at the cost of your opponent gets to know everything you're doing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and if they countered it, it's often very crippling for a lot of decks. Land grant's often used in very degenerate Belcher-style strategies where you can't afford to put too many lands in your deck for reasons pertaining to deck construction, how your strategy works.
In addition to that, those decks also care a lot about Storm, and so these free spells are a huge deal and worth so much more than a land could ever be.
Excellent point. This doesn't seem as relevant in Elves. The thinning might matter if you fire off a distant melodies that's pretty large in quantity.
Yeah.
But usually I don't think it's really worthwhile. Sometimes you have spells that care about green cards in hand. I know there was an old 9-land Stompy deck that was a very aggressive deck that ran 4 land grants along with 9 or 10 forests. And in that case, you could pitch it to cards like Bounty of the Hunt, but just looking at Frank's deck list, I don't think he has any effects
Yeah,
like those.
I think he just swapped out some lands for those land grants, and I don't really know if there's a value in it. The cost is not in zero. You know, it's reveal your hand to your opponent. I mean, there are effects that do that your opponent might play, such as Gataxian Probe. And so giving it to them for free seems a little bit strange. We're
Well,
going to see an
at
Elvish Visionary here. Going to draw.
There's one unknown card now in Frank's hand.
I imagine he's going to play it right here, though. It's a Birchlow Rangers. Oh, no.
I think I would like sequencing that better. You could pump out an extra creature. But,
Absolutely. If you drop the Birchlow Rangers there, you can then tap the Elvish Visionary and the Birchlow Rangers.
But you know, he might be a little bit reluctant to do that into the face of that Crypt Rats.
I suppose that's a good point. But the thing is if Cody blows the Crypt Rats, he is 3 for 2ing himself. He's killing the Crypt Rats and the Chittering Rats. And I don't know if that's a huge cost.
It's a lot of rats.
Rats on rats on rats.
Fortunately, there are no pack rats in this format.
Yeah, very true. And so Cody's in the tank here about exactly how he wants to execute this combat step. I imagine he's going to be attacking with the Gurmag Angler, and I would attack with the Chittering Rats.
Gurmag Angler, great attacker.
Yeah, great attacker, great blocker, very cheap, hard to abrupt decay.
Actually, no, he didn't attack with Chittering Rats last time. I don't see what would have changed this time around. So, predictably, I think he didn't send it in. It's certainly justifiable.
I
think
have
he'd
no
get
problem
aggressive.
setting in because at worst, you know it's trading with the Nettle Sentinel, which is like a very reasonable trade. And when you're playing this mono black control deck, you really want to prolong the game. Even in situations where you're up on the board like this, you want to get enough turns for Gurmag Angler to be lethal. So we're going to see another Chittering Rats come down. Anti-draw 1.
Yep. But I think, Frank can actually cast Distant Melody this turn, but there is still that Crypt Rats in play, so he's going to have to force Cody to pop it at some point to blank that Distant Melodies. Do you think there's any merit to playing that Birchlow Rangers as a morph?
Not really. The only problem being that you would have to spend mana later to flip it up.
Yep.
It's not a huge deal though, and the fact that it's a 2/2, not a 1/1 could come up.
What's that white-looking card? Is that
Oh, yeah, that's
Viridian Armor?
I think that's Viridian Longbow. I don't think it can be anything else.
It
Yeah,
looks like
that's
it is
exactly
Viridian
what it is.
Longbow.
So it gives a creature ping, is that right?
Yeah, it turns it into a Tim. It is making his own Kumbaj Witches.
Yeah, he's trying to. Here it comes, there's the longbow, not a short bow. How much does it cost to equip? 3?
3 mana to equip, so he's
Yes.
not going to be able to do this turn. And eventually he's going to want to put it on that Nettle Sentinel, force Cody to
Agreed.
bring.
Ooh. I didn't even think about that interaction. That's very powerful. Nettle Sentinel able to untap multiple times per turn. If you put a ping effect on it, rather than just attacking, you can start shocking some big guys.
Now, Cody is a good player, so he'll probably be able to figure out what Frank wants to do. Currently, the game state is in his favor, but if that Longbow gets on the Nettle Sentinel, it could turn quite ugly for him.
Absolutely.
So let's see how he decides to navigate this turn.
I feel like he should be attacking with the Chittering Rats. I would attack with the Chittering Rats every time that Cody has chosen not to, just because there's not really a good block. The only block that is passable is Frank trading a Nettle Sentinel for a Chittering Rats that already generated value, and that's pretty powerful 2-for-1.
And that Nettle Sentinel is a lot more valuable with that Longbow on the play.
Absolutely, it changes a lot of math. And like at worst, you just activate the Crypt Rats for 2, which would kill the Chittering Rats anyways. Looks like Chittering Rats is going to be activated for 1 here. Going to ping 1, deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. So the X ones that Frank had are going to die. Crypt Rats is of course going to kill itself. All these creatures now have 1 damage on them, and I imagine Cody's going to swing for the fences here. I certainly would attack for 9. It looks like we're going to get a Guess Verdict. Target player sacks a creature, loses a life. That Nettle Sentinel is hitting the bin. Cody's tapping the life pad, and it looks like we got to swing for 9 here, putting Frank down to 5, and he's just about dead.
That is a quick clock, and his board state just got wiped out really quickly.
Yeah, he just got answered very hard. I feel like it would be more cost-effective just to blow up the Crypt Rats on 2. Even though that kills the Chittering Rats, I don't think you care too much about having those Chittering Rats, as having a Guess Verdict might be
Save
more
it in
relevant.
hand. Yeah, it's more powerful when your opponent has no board.
Yeah, exactly. When your opponent plays a creature, especially if they have an equipment, because that means they're trying to generate value out of the equipment, which means they're spending 3 mana on equipping rather than...
Is that another verdict?
It's another Verdict. That's going to eat the Nettle Sentinel, and then an attack for 9 plus a Duress will be lethal. Looks at a hand
Duress
of 3
for
Lissalana
information.
Huntmaster and 1 Distant Melody. Too bad.
I'm a big fan of just conceding there to preserve information, but
I
he
think
already
you
gave
did.
away a lot of it with the land grant.
Yeah, I think Cody should have started with the Duress first so that Frank wouldn't feel obligated to surrender. But yeah, so that was game 1 going to Cody, and Frank had a pretty explosive hand even though he had 1 mana.
Yeah.
I felt there was a couple times that he wasn't sequencing very effectively with the with the Aquarian Ranger, where he could have been bouncing it back to his hand and hitting that for his land drop, and instead he elected not to.
He could have been a little bit more aggressive about jamming things on the board, but maybe he was afraid of the Crypt Rats, which is a 2-0 for Cody in the main deck.
It's incredibly powerful and very good in this matchup.
Now, what do we think changes after boarding?
So I see that Cody has another Crypt Rats on the board and 3 Pestilence. I have to imagine all of those are coming in.
Yep.
Possibly a Tendrils of Corruption and possibly Wrenchmind.
Is Pestilence the greatest limited common of all time?
Probably.
very
Pyrohemia
short
was uncommon, right?
I don't know.
The
I
color
think
shifted version.
color
I'm
shifted,
pretty sure
yeah.
it's uncommon. Not 100% though.
There's Rolling Thunder, which I think is only
Oh yeah.
other possibility.
Very, very true.
Imperial Armor.
Is Choking Sands the one that deals 1 damage to each creature, or is Choking Sands the one that deals 2 damage to the land's controller? I always get these 2 cards mixed up. There's
I
2.
think one was Icequake and Choking Sands. I think
it's Choking Sands and like Corrupted
that's the
Earth.
Mirage
are the
one,
2.
right?
Yeah.
Oh,
So Choking Sands is the destroy target non-swamp land, and then deal 2 damage to the land's controller. Cody has 3 of those in his board. I was thinking that he had the other one, which has Threshold and deals 1 damage to each creature when you casted it for a few.
Is it like Rolling Spoils or something?
No, it's like Poisoned Earth. What's the name of that card? Rancid Earth. There we go. Rancid Earth is the card that I'm thinking of. That name is so hard for me to remember.
All right, but what does Frank have to work with? He's got 2 more copies of Viridian Longbow, which could have been effective that board, but he never got enough mana to play it. I'm not sure if this is where you would want that type of effect, but I don't know if he'll ever get enough resources to make that effective.
I don't know if this is a matchup where you want the Longbow in, because Cody doesn't care very much about his creatures. You really want that Viridian Longbow versus decks that need to have enough creatures in play to sustain. For example, in the mirror match, I think Viridian Longbow is out of control. I think it's very good there.
4 copies of Gleeful Sabotage. I don't know if there's necessarily...
You don't bring it in
if
here.
he expects Pestilence and thinks he could beat it after he gets down on the board, I could see that, but I think that's a little bit reactive for a deck that wants to be more proactive.
Yeah, I think it's better to just have the cards that you'd be boarding out for those to just be what their main deck configuration is, which is just more creatures.
3 Essence Wardens, a color shifted Soul Warden. I don't think this is a matchup where you care about the life gain.
I don't think Frank's life total matters until he goes to 0.
Yeah. How about Spider Silk Armor? All creatures you have get +0/+1 have reach. It's a +0, the Parapet effect that he might be in the market for. Seems kind of expensive for that though.
It's very effective versus Kumbaj Witches, but it's very ineffective against a lot of the other removal that Cody is bringing to the table.
So he'll likely just sleeve up his main deck 60, maybe put in the 2 Viridian Longbows, take out some...
I mean, he had a Viridian Longbow that game, and it not only was it not relevant, but he didn't even have the mana to activate it.
Yep.
And I feel like had he gotten enough mana, he still wouldn't really be able to do anything with it.
Now, interesting, he only plays, so there's Llanowar Elf, the original one. It's got the functional equivalents, Elvish Mystic and Finhorn Elves. Do you think, Frank's actually running just one of each. Do you think this is more important to run in your Elf second popper?
I think that it's important to have like 6 or 7 of that effect. However many of each you want to play is really up to you, but I don't think one of each is the right number simply because that doesn't get you to 6 or 7. That only gets you to 3.
Math checks out.
Yeah, the math wasn't very hard, and I did do it. However, we are starting with one of those, and you know what? If you just have them in your opener every time, it doesn't really matter how many you play more than one.
Cannot disagree. Now he's going to have access to at least 2 mana this turn. Is that the Distant Melody he just grabbed?
Just ripped in a Distant Melody, not too powerful at this point. What's the card on the far left? What is that?
You know, it looks like an Undiscovered Paradise, but I highly doubt that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't think it is. It looks like, I don't know, it looked like it was altered or something like that.
Could be. You know, it kind of looks like an Urza's Power Plant to me too, but that does not make any sense.
I really want to know.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see this soon enough.
Looks like a burgeoning to me, which is also not legal.
Birchlore Rangers, here we go.
So
Resolves?
looks like Birchlore is going to resolve. So no real reason to activate the Birchlore Rangers here. Let's just tap the...
Certainly not, just one green.
So now that we've got a Nettle Sentinel.
Ooh, now do you want to use Disfigure Cody Herring? Guess not.
The answer is no. That is a great Disfigure target as Nettle Sentinel is very powerful with Birchlore Rangers in play. So we got a Wrench Mine, so that's target player discards 2 cards or an artifact card. I really want to know what that last card is. That's really bothering me. It's so close. I keep on almost seeing it. Looks like he is going to pitch it, but he's... Oh, is it Spider Silk Armor?
Oh,
yep.
okay.
All right, gonna go ahead and read that. Oh, yeah, it is. I
And
recognize
a
it now.
Timberwatch Elf.
And Timberwatch
So
Elf,
if Frank top decks a land this turn, or a Korean Ranger, Variety of Draws can actually allow him to cast Distant Melody, and that's going to be very important to him.
Absolutely.
What does he pick up right there? That looks like a copy.
Priest of Titania is what it looks
Oh,
like.
the Priest of Titania is a big game.
Absolutely. So it looks like we got
3 mana.
4 mana. Yeah, 3 mana. Sorry. We're gonna cast a Timberwatch Elf. Untap the Nettle Sentinel. And then
You want to send in right here, or
I certainly would have. Especially when you're gonna cast a spell next turn, anyways. I guess maybe there's value in not doing it because you know that you want to cast Distant Melody next turn. If you wait one more turn, you could potentially get blown out by either Pestilence or Crypt Rats. So I guess Pestilence is 4 mana, so that doesn't work either.
Cody hits his 3rd land drop, considering his turn right now. Hymn to Turok is banned in this format, right?
Yes. It is a
Extremely
common.
powerful.
It's a common in paper and not a common on Magic Online, so it's banned in paper Pauper, but not Magic Online Pauper.
Now that's Cyan Blood, or
It is,
the
yeah.
other functional?
Cyan
functional
Blood.
equivalent?
Kumbaj Witches is one of the cards drawn. Does Cody have another land? He really wants to play that Witches this turn, I believe. It's either that or a Disfigure on the, looks like Timberwatch Elf. Gonna get out of here. Very reasonable. Certainly the right card to kill.
Could be quite scary. But does Frank have a copy of Priest of Titania? That's actually the payoff card.
Yeah,
or
he does.
That is.
I would
not
say
the
Timber-
payoff, but
Priest of Titania certainly helps, but I feel like Timberwatch Elf is really the payoff card here. Let's see what Frank likes to do. Looks like he's drawn a Springleaf Drum for the turn. A little late to generate a lot of value off of that effect, I feel. He really just wants lands at this point, I think. Maybe just 1 or 2 more lands.
or even a land grant.
Yeah, that would work. I mean, it's basically a land, right? Springleaf Drum is the play.
Actually,
And
I don't think is that a Springleaf Drum?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
It's the Origins art,
gotcha.
the new one, not the Lorwyn one. I really like the Lorwyn art.
I could certainly recognize it a lot more. Oh, that's a. He's tapping the Springleaf Drum.
Priest
to
of Titania
put
is the
Priest.
play. Untap the Nettle Sentinel and then
See
probably
if you
clock for
remember the
3, I
trigger.
imagine. Looks like no
you-
trigger remembered.
Did not remember the trigger.
And pass the turn back to Cody. Cody's going to draw hits a land. Looks like Crypt Rats is coming down, and I imagine this board is about to get swept. takes care of 3 of those guys, deals 1 damage to each player, and Cody is right back into the driver's seat in this matchup. Frank is
Yeah.
left with a board of land plus tapped and Nettle Sentinel.
This is not looking good for him.
Nettle Sentinel does not untap either, so that the Springleaf Drum cannot be activated. Fintorn Elves is the draw, going to be able to deploy that threat this turn. And Frank is a land away from being able to play Distant Melody. I think he needed to play Distant Melody last turn, though. I feel like he should have been afraid of his sweeper effect coming in, and should have generated value with that card when he could, rather than trying to commit more to the board.
I don't know if he was actually able to cast the last turn. I'd have to rethink.
Yeah, me too. I think he had just enough mana.
Oh, but you know what? Shittering Rats right here. He's not going to top deck a land. He's going to top deck that card he still cannot cast.
Yeah, that Distant
And
Melody.
a Kumaj Witches as a follow-up. Well, that's...
Frank's in really bad shape for this game, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure that Tal is just about ready to get thrown in.
And Cody gave a thumbs up. I don't know if he was acknowledging something Frank said or whether he just showing that he feels very confident about this board state.
Either one is possible.
Certainly.
Are
Is
we
he
gonna see an
running
attack?
copies of Corrupt?
I don't think he's playing any Corrupt, but he is playing... he's not playing any Tendrils of Corruption either.
Yeah. We
Interesting.
do have the Grey Merchant of
Asphodel.
Gary.
Gary.
And actually, that just... no, that's Phyrexian Ranger. I'm sorry. He's pulling very far ahead in card draw.
Yeah.
Usually, the deck that actually wants to draw cards with its creatures on board is the Elves deck after following up with Distant Melodies. Looks like he's never going to get that far.
We're going to see a ping on the Mana Dork, and Frank is again left with a board of 1 mana.
Then
And
Frank,
drawing Distant Melody this turn.
and Frank is going to ping Cody. Oh, he's got a clock at least.
Reasonable. Kumbaj Witches usually goes upstairs when activated.
Yep.
Well, the opponent usually chooses to have it go upstairs. Let's see what Cody is going to do with this turn. Draws a land. Plays his land for the turn. And he's in the tank. He's got 3 cards in hand, I believe, and I can't tell what anyone is. Looks like one of them is a Victim of Night. That's going to take care of the Nettle Sentinel right now. And I imagine a swing for 4? Oh, swing for 5. Okay. I kind of actually like pinging with Kumbaj Witches just in case Frank does draw a Mana Dork.
Yeah,
It's not a huge deal, but I don't think that Cody's life total is very relevant anymore.
Nope.
Okay, there we got a
Especially not
Gurmag
the
Angler.
Gurmag Angler.
Yeah. And so I feel like the Kumbaj Witches has like, a 5% chance of getting really extra value. Land Grant's the draw.
Land
That's
Grant off the top.
gonna
Show
reveal.
him a Distant Melody.
Searches for a forest and passes the turn back.
Cody.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cody has 10 damage coming in next turn, and then that'll put Frank down to 2.
Is there anything that can get Frank out of this?
Pestilence would be pretty good, and enough mana to activate it. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Really needs to get rid of that Gurmag Angler, and then also the 2 Chittering Rats, and then also the Kumbaj Witches.
He may just be drawing dead at this point, but I've sometimes called a game prematurely, so we're going to see if Frank has anything up his sleeves.
Yeah, this Elves deck is incredibly synergy-based, and so when it gets burned out of resources and doesn't have anything committed to the board, it's in really bad shape. There's so many cards it needs to draw in one draw step that it's just not possible.
Certainly.
It wants to draw more than 1 card this draw step, and you can't do that.
I'm a fan of these Zendikar full art lands for Pauper. They look nice. They have a really special flair, but they're not like too over the top. You don't want to, playing Guru lands in Pauper seems a little bit odd to me, but
Yeah.
this is
It
pretty
looks
sweet.
like Cody has the kill here. Going to drop in a Grey Merchant of Asphodel Drain for approximately $1 trillion.
Yeah, and that's going to be the match.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back to the booth, guys. We've got about 15 minutes left in the round, if I read that right. So we should have enough time for a backup match if we can find it. Sometimes that can be the issue. There's a lot of people playing in the room. Sometimes people don't want to be on camera. Sometimes people do want to be on camera, but they're not between games, and we don't want to shuffle people mid-game. But we will try and find a backup match for you. If not, we have about 15 minutes until the next round starts, where we will continue coverage from there. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be back as soon as we can.